You're locked into the Boom and Freezer Show, powered by the best in the game, Classic Billiards, Metro Sportz Bar, Anytime Billiards, PNW Pool Thing, the RACK Billiard Club, J. Pechauer, Tommy's Tattoo Supplies, In the Box, Andy Gow, and Wayne Harriman. Now, let's jump right into today's show.
All right, everybody. Bobby Hilton here from the Boom and Freezer Show. We got an awesome guest for you today. Not only the man, Jermey Jones. How you doing, Jermey?
Good, Bobby. Thank you. Show's been going pretty well from what I've seen. Excited to be on here.
Yeah, thank you, Jermey, for being on the show. We're excited to have you. We know scheduling is always an issue for you, myself, Bobby, everybody. We're all busy, but we're happy to have you on. Thank you very much, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely, Scott. And you know how it is. If you're going to stay in the pool world, you got to stay busy doing it. So
that's right. Nobody busier than you either.
In my opinion.
I do.
Except for Scott. No,
Scott, not me.
Literally, you just ran in here. I got that video. You literally just ran in here.
Whatever.
All right. But so how does it seem with you guys? I mean, you guys work together. So is this kind of just like a regular chat? I mean, you guys are pretty close, right? Or at least work close-wise, right?
Yeah, we probably don't claim it, but yeah, we're pretty close.
Yeah.
Overall, I mean, when you work with someone, you get to see them in a different light, and it's always refreshing to see that with someone you know pretty well.
Yeah, I'm fortunate. Obviously, Jermey knows this. I think the whole world knows at this point. I'm fortunate to always pick his brain over the last 3 or 4 years. I mean, I've known Jermey. I'm sure we'll get into that. I've known Jermey since I was freaking 16 years old. But, like he just said, in a different light, when you're working long hours and all over the world, you better get along with that person, but it's easy. And that's what's nice, right? If it just naturally comes and it's easy to work with somebody, it's very refreshing, like he said. So pretty lucky.
Let's start off with a little bit, Jermey, a little bit about the whole Matchroom schedule and what's going on. I mean, you obviously keep busy. Let's start first. What do you do besides Matchroom to keep yourself busy? I know what you do, but let everybody know what you do besides Matchroom commentating to keep yourself busy when you're not playing.
Yeah, Bobby. I mean, of course, I play a couple times a year still. That's not really much on the calendar like it used to be, but I teach mainly. That's what I mainly do. I probably do the commentary 12 weeks a year, here and there, mainly for Matchroom, of course. That's the one I'm committed to the most, but I do some smaller ones back here in the States, and then probably 30 weeks a year probably teaching, whether it be here at home in DFW, people coming in DFW, or locals, or I go a lot of other places, New York, well, all over really, West Coast, East Coast, to do a lot of teaching overall.
Yeah, we actually had both you guys here, which was amazing. I mean, a lot of our players are still talking about that event we had, and I appreciate both you guys for coming down. It really made a big impact on the players, and good job. And obviously, I know I talked to Scott. He takes a big passion, and as do you. So thank you for doing that and continuing to grow the sport.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yours, like a lot of rooms I go to, man, it was a really, first off, a busy room, a real fun room, and it seemed like a real family room with all your patrons there. And of course, they all love Bobby, and it takes a great owner to really get that. But everywhere I've gone, the last several years of teaching, not only shows that pool's, on the rise as it should be with all the hard work from so many different people, but also just the family, kind of everyone, the connection in the pool rooms. And I think it's like anything else. When we think about the culture and talk about the culture, you can have a lot going on, but you can rely on the pool room to give you some satisfaction in some kind of way, whether it be hitting balls or gambling a little bit, or watching other people gamble, maybe suffer a little from the sidelines. But you can rely on the pool room, and it seems like that's in a good place overall across the country.
Yeah, that's great. And another thing I want to talk about, actually, we got you got your shirt. What does your shirt say right there?
Oh,
right there.
Team Q-Tech.
You guys just added a player today, right? Did you guys make an announcement?
Yeah, Jesus Atencio was added to the team, and Q-Tech's real lucky to have him. I think he's got a big upside. He's a great kid. He's always smiling, very charismatic, and very well liked. And I think he'll love the Q-Tech people as well.
Yeah, I think that's about as good a choice as you could get, right? I don't see a player coming on that's any hotter than he is with the following he's got. I think that's as good a choice as you can get.
Yeah, I think one thing about Q-Tech is they'll motivate you to play. I think at one point Jesus was trying to figure himself out and took a little time off here and there, but you can tell it served him pretty well. He's got a lot of things in order, and I think he's ready to do a lot of damage out there on tour. Kind of like, maybe not the game quite there yet of a Johann Schua, but real close. I think the upside's there for sure. But a guy that, once he decided to spend that time out there doing it, he's going to, climb up the charts pretty quickly.
Yeah, young and talented. Johann Schua, you mentioned, but I think Atencio just as talented. Maybe not quite there, like you said, in the shot making department, but boy, his energy is great. People just absolutely love him too. Everybody's just drawn to him. Obviously, what happened at the Florida Open really opened a lot of eyes for people as well.
Yeah, and win or lose, some of those matches were so exciting in Florida and different places because they weren't always perfect. There was a lot of perfect involved, but then some big misses. But he's just an attractive guy to watch play, and on the table, he's someone that I think all of us like watch playing, and I think, like I said, it's going to serve a good purpose for both parties, him and Q-Tech, and moving forward.
No question. Q-Tech's great. Shout out to Brett Garson and everything that they do, and yourself. Q-Tech's as good as they get. They support pool. I think they're the biggest company in pool as far as Q products that there is, in my opinion, and they have really supported it, and it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, they're really good people, Brett and everyone else that does things over there, and any company that's always looking to improve from year to year. It's almost like tournaments itself. Whenever I used to be around a lot of smaller events, I used to always mention to, people would ask me, what could you do for the tournament? And just look to improve every year. It doesn't have to be, mountains you're climbing every year, but look to make the tournament better from year to year instead of standing still. And I think any Q company that does that is going to gain the respect of all the players and fans and whatnot.
It's funny you say that. Like Scott and I are after the show, we're actually doing one more. Then we're doing our finale. We're doing a lot of our sponsors coming on, and exactly like you're wearing another sponsor on your head, right? You got Fort Worth.
Oh yeah, Fort Worth Billiards.
Yeah. But like I said, all those companies, not just Cues, but there's like Elvis from In the Box, and PNW. We talked to those guys. A lot of these companies are really stepping up their game, and like you said, trying to do better like they were in tournaments. They're doing more for the sport, and I think they're getting more back in the long run.
Yeah,
you see that?
I mean, yeah, absolutely. The investment you got, and I think it gets back to there's always dollars involved, and it has to be because that's what makes the world go round, right? In a lot of ways, but I think it just gets back to how much and how many people truly love this sport. You know what I mean? So they don't want to sit still, just like we opened the show with being so busy. Well, there's gazillions of us out there in the pool world doing the same thing, just trying to make it better.
Yeah, there's a lot of companies out there that are doing big things. I have an announcement. Obviously, some people know, some don't, but I'm not going to go public with it yet. But I'm pretty fortunate as well. And it's just another one of those companies that are really, really improving and trying to do better, right? They're not afraid to bring people on, even if you're not playing it full time or whatever you're doing. And I think that's what the players definitely have to sustain the costs out there. And it's always just a good thing. The more money going around, the better it's going to be for everybody. And it's great to see. But obviously, the root of this, in my opinion, is obviously what Matchroom does, in my opinion, right? The exposure that they've put out for the players and people like yourself, Jermey, Carl Boys, and not even playing full-time, myself. The exposure that they put out there for people is, and especially the players, is unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, one thing, I've worked for a lot of companies, and one thing about Matchroom, of course, whoever's winning, whoever's number one, they're going to get the most coverage, as they should. But it's not just that top two or three guys, that's always the same names. They're always doing features with different types of players, and of course, different players in our tour. It's so solid. They make runs at those tournaments, so of course they're going to get some coverage that maybe they didn't expect at times, but it's a real fair deal out there with the WNT, and like Scott said, they put a lot of people on the map, and also, we know there's other tournaments out there, whether we talk about them or not, or and we do talk about them, but
Sure,
they've raised that bar as well.
Yeah.
Whether it be the WPA and Predator or whatever other companies is going on and doing things. They could give a nice thank you to Matchroom as well, because I'm sure their production and their numbers have risen just seeing what they're dealing with and the competition they're in, and trying to raise their own tournament levels.
Yeah, no doubt. It's a great time to be a very talented player. That's to say the least.
Yeah. Getting through all those little crossroads as well, that everything gets a little political here and there, you know what I mean? But that's okay, as the better this and that than nothing at all. So
Well, and that's business, right, Bobby? I mean, in any business that we look at, I know it's in golf, I know it's in every sport. And Jeremy, you're attached to so many sports, but politics, when there's money involved, there's always going to be politics.
Yeah, just like the football game. I mean, Dallas versus Green Bay. You know what I mean? The guy from Green Bay is playing defense because they don't want to pay him the money. They all loved him, and it is what it is. And it's just part of business. That's how it is in all sports. And we are a sport. And I did want to touch a little bit about that without getting anybody in trouble here. We got a couple.
Don't do that.
Bobby's good. Bobby's good at trying to get you in trouble.
We got a couple
Bobby's
good things.
I work for myself. I can say whatever I want. I'm good.
Yeah, exactly.
That's funny. But yeah, I mean, we mentioned a couple of those big things, but there is one conflicting schedule, and it's kind of weird that it happened this way. But we got the Hanoi Open, and then we got the WPA, Women's 10 Ball, the World 8 Ball, and the World Cup doubles. I don't know how that got scheduled. It seems like they've been working together, kind of like you said, feeding off each other. With something like this, how do you think this is going to affect either tournament, both tournaments, and the sport, Jeremy?
I watched a little bit of Windows Open, the podcast, Dogging It, I believe it is the official name of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Melina Mike, for sure.
Yeah, Mike and Mike.
Yep.
And I watched a little bit of that. Those guys are always entertaining to me. And I felt like they covered some things saying that, went over both fields are going to be really strong, which is a good thing. Maybe that both those being in Asia really helps support that as far as being able to have two tournaments that are still with really class fields. Obviously, those are two major events. Anytime you slap some world title on something, and I don't mean that in a bad way, slap. I mean, that sounded bad, but you attach that world title to something, it's going to mean a whole heck of a lot to a whole heck of a lot of people and players and people that are behind them, countries, whatnot. So you're going to be pressured to play in that type of event, not only because you want a world title, but, there may be other entities behind you, whether it be your government or your sponsors that want you to play in that event also. It's just unfortunate that, we have such two great events. Hanoi, we've seen what kind of class that's brought, not only with the players, the venue, and the fans, but it's just unfortunate that those two are clashing at the same time. Because, any world title, of course, is special, but Hanoi's been off the charts. And I can't believe that there's not a player out there that doesn't have some kind of regret not being able to play in that event.
I agree. I mean, Honas, one of our guys that I sponsor, and Lucas out there for the first time, but I can see Honas is social media skyrocketing because of him being there in Hanoi. Like the fans, they just love him. You can see the smile. He's like a rock star out there, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think he's got that anyways. You know, he's got the game, he's got the look. He's not afraid. So I think anywhere there's fans, he's going to be they're going to be attracted to him pretty much. But yeah, I mean, I think Vietnam's been a great thing for all these guys, all these players. I can't see any of them not getting some type of attention. Some get more than others, of course, but yeah, it's just, the money's getting better for these guys. If they're smart, they can make money all kinds of ways. But to be away from that energy there in Hanoi at that Hanoi Open, I think once the guys get in front of those 3,000 fans, that's where they really want to be, and they don't want to miss that kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I mean, it's maybe not the world title, but sure is something special.
Well, yeah, in coming as a player myself, and I know I don't have to speak for you, but there's nothing better. It really, you kind of forget about the money. That's like completely a second place thing there as far as money's concerned. But when you've got 3,000 fans, and I've never been to Hanoi, but I've watched every single one of them from here, and I get to go this year. I'm super pumped about it. Not the flight, not looking forward to that, but I'm looking forward to being there. And my point there is that when you've got 3,000 fans in the audience and they're screaming and yelling and you're down below and they're hovering above you and you're playing well, I can't imagine how sweet that is, right? Like I've been in the finals of the Derby and won that, and you're surrounded by people everywhere. You've won the U.S. Open. You've gone deep in so many major events. There's just really nothing better. And when you're in that moment and you're playing well, the last thing you're thinking about, the very last thing you're thinking about is the money.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not something you're going to talk about later on either. I mean,
Right.
If you reminisce, it's not going to be, oh man, yeah. And I blew that 60K over here.
Right.
Whatever I did with it, you know what I mean? But it's going to be the energy and knowing that you got comfortable in a setting like that, or as comfortable as you could get, and you performed. That's something special. And the other thing is, like I said, Vietnam has been a great thing for all these players. And it's a little upsetting that the fans got to get split up between those two events that same week in Vietnam, instead of them being able to attend both events on separate weeks. But, it is what it is, and it's slated to happen. So
hopefully that changes in the future. Hopefully that changes in the future,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
Shit happens, and I think this will be a one-off. I hope we'll just pull for that.
Also, I think a little bit different. We talked about this, Scott, too, with Emily, actually, when the UK Open happened and a couple of the other top pros had prior engagements in China. They had to go do certain things. Yes, it does split up the people, but again, now you're creating more of the top name players. Like these players that weren't top name have both chance in two levels to go up. Do you know what I'm saying? There's going to be more champions. There's going to be more second, third, fourth place top finishes, which gets more people recognized as the sport. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And you can win a world title, and you can win a U.S. Open, and you can win whatever event you want to talk about without maybe having to play SVB in that draw, or a Federer also in that draw, or whoever it may be. But you still don't want to look back at that world title and say, hey, man, yeah, the number one guy in the world wasn't there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or Hanoi, all these guys weren't there when you won Hanoi.
And that's a great point. That's probably the most important thing deep down to these guys, right? Because they know, they know that, and so that's tough, and that's the unfortunate part. Well, along with the fans being split up, I think those are both key factors, and a little bit of the unfortunate side for the player.
Yeah, and it's growing pains, and just gotta learn from it, and I don't know how exactly to guarantee better, but I think that all parties involved want to make it better.
This episode is brought to you by Classic Billiards, South Florida. Listen, it's Fort Lauderdale, to be exact. Dave Bartosiak, Leah Bartosiak, they're expanding twice the size. The place is hopping. They don't like the traditional stuff. They don't like the church quiet stuff. They like to rock and roll fast and loose. Beer, balls, and wings. Classic Billiards in South Florida.
Now I want to get into a little bit about what were you saying about blowing 60 grand? What's the story? You and Scott, you just said it's not like blowing
No,
60 grand.
he was just saying that, making a reference. He wasn't talking.
Yeah. I'm saying like 20 years from now, when we're talking about it, yeah, man, I played my tail off at the Hanoi Open final, we're not going to go on to, I only had that money for this long, or whatever I did with it. I went on to make millions with that 60,000 or whatever, what. You know what I'm saying?
He's just talking.
He the money very much.
He was just referring to the tournament money.
So Scott, you're saying you never blew 60,000? Is what you're saying?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But you're switching gears on us too quick. I can't keep up. Yeah, no doubt. There's no doubt. Blown. Yeah, I've blown more than that. Yeah, those days are long gone. I think for myself and the other guy on the screen. So yeah.
Yeah, the pit is the pit only. I kind of wave as I go by.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a good feeling not to be drawn into that pit. Now,
well, every now and again they still send me like 3 or 4 nights free or at this cheap rate with no resort fees. So
take advantage.
Chance to take advantage of it. So
that's it.
We joined you, Bobby, at the casino when we were over there that night. I think y'all were in action a little bit.
Yeah, we did a little bit. I like to play a little roulette here and there, nothing crazy, you know what I mean? But yeah, we can talk about a lot of those stories. That'll be a whole other show.
For the record, though, Jeremy and I didn't bet a quarter.
You didn't? We
didn't bet a quarter.
I was literally like, what's going on with these guys?
Yeah.
Figure it out. But we had a good dinner,
too
right?
hard.
Dinner was
good,
right?
Dinner was
good,
amazing.
Right? Yeah, dinner was awesome. Yeah, beautiful. Pretty nice little casino. Well, it wasn't that little, actually. And that was just right across in UMass. Is that right?
Right around there. Yeah, downtown Springfield. It's real small. Really, literally like the 7 tables of roulette and 5 blackjack tables. Really small. But a lot of fun.
It seemed bigger, though. It seemed bigger.
It did. It did seem bigger. Yeah. Maybe with the extras around it, the little shopping and whatnot.
Yeah, not too bad. Let's talk a little bit
before MGM? So
MGM property. Yeah, MGM, which is nice because when I go to Vegas, like for my amateur events, they give you a little comp there and there. Nothing crazy, but it's all good. Let's talk a little bit about, before we get into Mosconi and stuff, you do so much for, outside the sport. Like you said, you do lessons, you're on the Joe Rogan podcast. I want to talk a little bit about that. Maybe is it a friend of yours, or how did you get involved in the Joe Rogan experience?
The years would slip me by, but it wasn't that long ago. Maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I was out there, after pandemic when everything opened back up, and I was at the Q-Tech booth for the BCA, or the CSI rather. It used to be called the BCA, but the CSI used to have the World 10 Ball and all that with it. And I was getting ready to leave, if I remember correctly. So I went back to pack, whatnot, went back to the Q-Tech booth to say bye to the guys before heading to the airport. And they said, hey, Joe Rogan just stopped by the booth. He wanted to meet you. And I was like, yeah, right. Whatever, quit bullshitting, and then Ian said it. Yeah, no, really, and Ian, if anyone knows Ian, you can tell he's a character for sure, but you can tell when he's telling you the truth for sure. And I was like, oh, damn. And so he said, I think he's commentating a match right now for I think it was the World 10 Bowl going on. And in that same room there at the Rio. I said, okay. So I just wrote a little note. And it was kind of odd because I'd quit working for Predator or those events in the booth. And so you know how things, when you quit, can get a little sticky. You know what I'm saying? Like, there was no bad blood or nothing. I just, told him, hey, I'm going to just stick to these other events I'm doing. And so I didn't really think twice because I had to get going. So there was a security guy there, and I just went on past him right there by the booth. And I went up to Joe and tapped him on the shoulder, and he looked back, and we shook hands. He had the headset on and everything. And so I just wrote down my number. I said, hey, hit me up whenever you get a chance. And so a few months went by, maybe 3 months. It was late May or something like that, early June. And I got a text from a 512 number, I believe it was, which I know is Austin because I have a brother who lives there. And he said, "Oh, is this Jeremy Jones?" And I said, "Yeah." And I text back, "Yeah." I said, who's this? And it said, "Oh, it's Joe Rogan." And da da da. He said, coincidentally enough, he mentioned that he had lost my number, but he got it from Mika Eminent.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, just ironically, you bring up this story. So anyways, he just hit me up. He said, "I'd love to play some pool with you if you ever get around Austin." I said, "Yeah, I go to Austin all the time to teach." So long story short, a month or so later, I went up there and we played a couple days. And he's like, "I want to play some more. Come back tomorrow. We got to do a show and all this stuff." And I don't think we planned on doing a show at all. He just wanted to play. And after hanging out a couple days, he's like, "Oh, we got to do a show." And so we played the next day, I think it was, and we never got to the show because he just wanted to play. You know, we just kept playing. Like, "Oh, come back tomorrow and do the show." I said, "Okay." So we started off playing the next day, and after a few hours, he's like, "Damn it, we got to do the show." So we quit and we did the show. It was great, and then we went back to playing a little while longer, and just kind of hit it off from there and became friends.
You know, it's funny because I've known Joe 20 years, literally probably 20 years, and I used to go to his comedy shows, and it was kind of an accident how we met. But every time we used to play a lot back in the day, but every time I got with him in the past, the last time he came to Freezers, he got me tickets to a show in Phoenix, a big show that he had, and it was unbelievable. I love his stand-up. Have you seen his stand-up in person, Jeremy?
Oh yeah. I've been to the Mothership several times there in Austin.
Oh, okay. That's got to be amazing. I'd love to do that at some point. But the last time I was running Freezers, and he and Tony Hinchcliffe and like his whole crew, we all rode over there after the comedy show. And the minute I walk in, it was like playing defense. It was just I didn't even get a chance to play pool with him. It was pretty brutal. Got him dinner, and it was tough, you know, because you got that pool room that I had was huge. It was massive, and there's people everywhere. And once they see that it's him, it was just it wasn't easy. So I didn't get a chance to play with him at all. But my point to that is he loves to play. And when you start playing with him, and you're a perfect guy for that, you start playing with him, and hours just fly by. Hours.
Yeah, well, he's serious.
Yes.
When he plays.
Yeah.
He loves it. Well, you know, Carl and I went to the UFC.
Yes, I was in touch with you guys the whole time.
Yeah, last December we went out there with Joe, and so the first night we went to the weigh-in. I think that was around 4:00. We had just flown in a few hours before, went to the weigh-in, which was cool. And then we met up with Joe there, went to dinner, and then he wanted to play pool. So we had reserved that area at Griff's there in the corner where they do the stream. And we played pool for 9 hours, I believe it was. And he played every game. So,
well, that just shows how he is, though, and he's always been like that, right? Anything that he loves to do, and anything he puts his mind to, he just goes. He's not a half-assed type of guy, and he's very passionate about what he does, and that's obviously martial arts, comedy, pool, and he's also very talented.
Yeah, he can run out playing 9-ball, that's for sure, and he's just one of those guys that kind of, once he gets in a certain mindset, there is no tired anymore.
Right.
You know, now once he loses that mindset, and we've all been there, and we all can do that, but he gets there easily. You know, he can get to that state pretty easily to where, okay, I'm good now. Let me just keep moving or keep going or keep reading or keep doing whatever he's doing. And he's going to sustain, kind of like SVB in a sense. Once SVB gets to that, you know, those long races, you know, like
I would agree.
First match,
yeah,
you know, you get in that kind of, he gets to that certain feeling, and then there is no more tired from there. It's almost like years ago, I knew once whenever I was on the road playing, gambling and all that, once I got a couple hours into a certain state, I wasn't going to play bad anymore. It was just going to be really good pool from there on out. You know what I'm saying? So.
Yeah, but like you said, it's kind of, well, especially at our age now. I mean, it's hit and miss to fall into that state. Obviously, we can practice at a high level pretty much any time, or a pretty high level, but to fall into, he does have that ability, Joe, to fall into that state quicker than most.
Well, I think he's probably pushed himself a bit more than we have in certain
Yep.
areas. You know
No,
what I mean?
no kidding.
So, I mean, it's hard for me to push myself away from the dinner table, much less kind of way.
Yeah.
But you know, Joe, I mean, he's a regimen guy, and he's built that brain to be pretty strong.
Yes, no doubt.
What it seems like, anyways.
No doubt.
Yeah, I know a friend of his, Tommy Jr., who he talks about all the time. They go to the fights with and stuff. Tommy Jr. was an East Coast legend, was a real great player, great money player. I guess they would travel around the East Coast back in the day. So it'd be interesting to see how good he actually really was, you know, back in the day, like when he was playing, you know.
Well, I was trying to stir stuff up, Jeremy, and I didn't even let it on to Jeremy when we were talking about Andy Goldstein. And I finally told Andy this year, but it was last year at the U.S. Open. I just wanted to stir it up and make it happen. But Joe Rogan will he'll defeat Andy Goldstein pretty handily, in my opinion. I just want to stir it up and get something to happen.
Well, I mean, Carl said he liked Andy, but Carl hadn't really seen Joe play, I don't think.
No, I don't think Carl knows how Joe plays.
But also, we haven't seen Andy play in a more comfortable setting also. So maybe Andy is going to show more. Probably will, to be honest. How much more, I don't know. But I didn't know Joe back then. But my guess is Joe's playing the best pool of his life right now. As well.
That would make sense. How old is Joe?
56 or 7, I think.
Gosh, he looks so good for his age. It's just shocking how good he looks.
Yeah, but he, Joe's got a good offensive game. You know,
that's what he is. He's powerful.
Yeah, well, I don't think he's ever really played a lot of tournaments. You know, he certainly hasn't played
right.
league, you know, so as far as like battling, defending, and all that kind of stuff, I don't think he's fallen knee deep into. Not saying he can't do it, but he can clear the table. That's for sure.
Yeah, and quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I would guess he's a 600s guy somewhere. If I had to guess Fargo, I'm not very good at Fargo.
I would agree.
Yeah, somewhere in the 600s. So,
all right, let's switch up a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about yourself. Let's talk about first. What was your most memorable and your most proudest match that you ever played in your career? Looking back, your beautiful career, World Championship, U.S. Open. What was the one match that you sat back and said, yes?
Well, the U.S. Open final was a big one for me that I won because I played really well. I felt good going into that match, to be honest with you, just because, you know, you have certain players that kind of hold over you hold over, or they hold over you a little bit. And as great as Perico was and probably still is, to be fair, it's just a guy that I had a really good record against. Didn't sleep the night before. I got through my Winterside match against the Earthquake Keith McCready. And didn't play that well at first, but got through it. And then I went and got an hour nap before the finals, came back, never made a ball practicing, Bobby. It was, I mean, people were sitting there watching me. They thought it was about to be a real
chance, right? No chance.
Yeah. And then I hardly missed a ball when it came time to play the final. So that one was a big one. But I think there were some other ones that you ain't going to be able to see on TV. Maybe there's something out there on YouTube. I don't know. But my first real pro win, the Camel Pro Billiard Series, you know, there's a lot of guys that say, oh, yeah, I won this pro. I'm talking about a real pro tournament. And,
that was a big tour.
Yeah, and that was in 99. I'd finished second in the first one of the year against Earl. He robbed me in the final. I kind of got complacent, just being happy being in the final. And then I came back the very next month in Atlanta, and I went undefeated. But I mean, I beat Efren and Johnny and Dennis Hatch and Boosty, and you know, I had by far the toughest draw and just kind of robbed them all until the final against Johnny Archer, who was my nemesis, by the way. How I held over Jose Johnny cost me more money in tournaments than any other player by far. He beat me in the finals of many big events.
Well, he was a player of the 90s as well. So
yeah, I mean, 99, I would have won player of the year, but he beat me in the final of the U.S. Open. But anyways, that same year in 99, I broke and ran, I think, the first 6 racks in the final, if I remember correctly. I missed a 5-ball on the side. Before I know it, it's 10-10. You know what I mean? With me and John.
yeah.
And I made the most incredible safety you ever seen. And then a pretty unreal combination on the 4-9. But to bounce back after losing the first one of the year in the final and getting robbed, and just to bounce back, I think that was probably the biggest match in my career to start making me feel like I could win.
To touch a little about that era, I literally wanted to mention all the players that you mentioned. It was tough fields that you're talking about. I mean, Perico was absolutely amazing player. For you to have a winning record against him is unbelievable. But you're playing Efren and you're playing Earl and Archer, and these are all guys that are pretty much in their prime and right about there. So tough times those years, right? Tough competition.
Yeah, very tough. 96 was my first year on tour, like the PBT. I think I won one match. I might not have won any. In 7 tournaments, I just never got comfortable, out there in that pro tournament setting. And then 97, I got a little bit better. 98, I went up to, I think, 25th or 24th. And then I jumped a lot in 99. Actually got to number 1 in the world in 99. But as far as the field you're talking about, they talk about all these Filipinos these days that are coming out. Well, it wasn't just Bustamante and Perica and Efren back in the day. I mean, there was
Luat,
Anton,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was tons of them, right?
Yeah.
There were great players along with tons of Americans and also a bunch of Europeans that some may not know.
Yeah, Bustamante. You said you played. You started playing on tour in '96. It's just kind of wild to me. I never held a pool cue until '95, and then I think, I mean, I just found a pool cue in '95. You were starting the tour. When did you start playing pool?
I started when I was 17. So 1988, my junior year, the end of my junior year in high school.
Oh, we were the same age, really.
Yeah. I started kind of late. Had 2 jobs at the time, one at the movie theater, one at the pizza restaurant. We'd always go play poker with our money, and one of the guys was a pool player, and he carried me up to the game room to play pool one night after work, and he hustled me out of my money, and so I quit one of my jobs so I could go get a job at the game room, just so I could play pool for free. And my only goal in life was to beat him. That's all.
Of course.
I wanted to get good enough to beat him, and then I was going to be pretty satisfied with it, I thought, but I just got dead hooked,
That's similar. We have similar stories there.
Yeah, once I realized how much there was to it, and of course making a score here and there didn't hurt, 500 or 400 or whatever it may be, and then real lucky to be around Houston area. I think that was probably the biggest factor for me to continue playing pool as a living, anyways.
Oh yeah, you talk about great room. Sorry, Bobby. You talk about a great town. I still say when people ask me what the best state for pool is, I still say Texas. And I could be wrong there. I mean, Phoenix, people don't realize. Jeremy, Phoenix is massive, but for pool community. But as far as gambling and action, my goodness gracious, you didn't really have to go anywhere else. You could just plant yourself in Houston for years at a time and get action.
Yeah, and prior to really knowing it, because you came there a little later, but when I first started, they'd tell me, don't go into Houston. There's too many great players, stay on the east side, out in the country in Baytown and whatnot. And I kind of listened to that for a little while, but then when I started going into Houston, there was like 70 pool rooms in Houston area at that time. It was literally like going on the road. Every pool room had their 2 or 3 champion players, and everywhere gambled. And there were many guys that came in town that you wouldn't even see at the main pool rooms until they were a month or 2 months in, because all they do is stick around to the outer pool rooms where the players weren't quite as good, but they still gambled. And It was sweet, really. I mean, you go on the road for a month or so, 2 months or whatever. At any moment, you could say it's all right to go home because you're going to be just as much action at home as you were on the road.
Yeah, and I'll never forget. It was 19. Actually, I don't know if maybe you didn't know I was through there back then. We were pretty quiet about it. James Walden and I were through there because I was playing Flyboy somewhere in Houston, I believe, in '99. I was playing him for 10,000, and that's when that tornado hit Oklahoma City. And I know that was 1999 because it was the biggest tornado to ever hit Oklahoma. And so we were going through there in '99, 2000. But you're right. When we got there, obviously Jimmy King found us first and had to steer us around, but which wasn't the greatest. But that whole city was like being on the road itself.
Yeah, big city, fourth biggest in the country, and big Hispanic crowd, big Asian crowd. And the one good thing about Houston, compared to some other ones, I'll use Dallas as an example, and I live here in Dallas, so don't take it personal, anyone in Dallas.
I love Dallas.
Yeah, no, DFW is a great metroplex and another big pool area, that's for sure. But, in Houston, it was personal. We used to say personal is personal and gambling is gambling, So me and Scott, let's just, for example, I might be trying to bust Scott on a Wednesday, and then Thursday I'm going in with him because I busted him, or I'm staking him on Thursday because I busted. You know what I'm saying? There was,
of course,
was no clicks, and there wasn't anything like that. Everything
that's how it was.
Yeah, and then you go to a place like Dallas, which there was still action, but it was a little less because there were definitely clicks that wouldn't gamble against each other.
100%.
Yeah, once you have a click, it's easy for something to connect to that click that squashes other action, and you know what I'm saying? So
yeah, absolutely. Our pool room growing up, the same thing.
Yeah, I think Baton Rouge was a lot that way. You had your buddy you didn't gamble with,
yep,
or maybe one or two guys you was always in with versus against, but for the most part, it was pretty wide open, and that's what's going to create action.
Yeah, and it kind of takes away from the aspect too, because if you have two of the top guys that are friends and aren't going to play, they're not going to bring themselves to the next level. And again, they're not going to create all the other action involved, the side pieces and everything else. So,
well, Bobby, you're from the Northeast.
Yeah,
we ain't trying to play the good players. We're trying to play the guys that ain't the good players. So, but no. To be honest about it, that was the beautiful thing that, there were big one pocket cities. So it wasn't always just, a Scott and a Jermey playing each other. It was a Jermey giving this guy, 10-6, which was a real tough game, but a great game, the partners, whatever it might be. So,
just creating the action, making something happen, getting the game going.
Yeah. And there's no coincidence. The one pocket cities, it doesn't always have to be one pocket, but the ones that have a lot of one pocket generally have more action.
No doubt.
What geared you towards the one pocket action, instead of the 9-ball? Was it just because there was more action at that point, or I know you really love one pocket, obviously, did you, what drawn you to the one pocket?
Probably I hated it at first. I didn't want to play it at all.
Me too.
Yeah. I mean, I think as much as guys that I could rob, I beat him playing 9-ball. One story, this guy, what's his name? We called him Navy. Man, I'll think of it in a second, but Don was his name. And he was a one pocket player, played pretty good 9-ball. We were pretty close to the same age. He was a little older than me. But probably I was 21 or 21 or something like that. And I got to where I played pretty good 9-ball pretty quick. And I busted him playing 9-ball. And he probably had, this is no lie, he probably had about 10 or 12 cue sticks. And so I beat him out of every cue stick one at a time. My younger brother, which Scott knows.
Drew. Shout out Drew.
Yeah, Drew. He played too, but he used to stay there when I gambled, and he'd stay there and sweat me the whole time. You know what I mean? And so after I started playing for these cues, every one of them I won, he's like, man, you better quit this. You better not go after all these cue sticks right here. So then me and the guy started to play one pocket. He had, 3 or 4 cues left, the nicer ones. And And so I beat him out of the first couple or whatever, but I can't beat him playing one. Anyways, long story short, he got every one of his cue sticks back, all his money and all my money playing one pocket. And my brother didn't let me live it down for a little while, but some of those, my point is the motivation of some of the guys that were beating me playing the game, you know, and then being able to see all this action going on in one pocket, I just felt like it was, yeah, it was something I needed to learn and wanted. And once I started to play it, like most, we love it. But also, I was real lucky that I had a guy by the name of Jack Brett, Jersey Red, that when I really wanted to start learning the game, he pulled me aside for about 5 to 6 months and helped me tremendously.
Yeah, very, very similar to me and Don McCoy. Our stories are eerily similar, and I haven't come across too many people like that. But Jack Brett, Jersey Red, was one of the best to ever do it, and real smart guy. I think that's where you got a lot of your style from. But I did want to say, and you can touch on that, Jeremy. Obviously, when you realized that you could play the game and you started falling in love with it, there, unfortunately or fortunately, there was just no comparison. You didn't want to put your money up playing 9-ball when you really couldn't defend yourself. Back then, especially with the rules the way they were, you just couldn't really defend yourself versus playing one pocket, right? And if you could outsmart a guy, you could always win.
Yeah. Give me 1 second, guys. I lost something here on this feed.
You're good with us as long as you can hear us. We can see you and hear you.
Okay, great. So yeah. I mean, you're right there with that, Scott. I mean, you know, I think 9-ball in comparison to one pocket would be, you know, like playing gin on the road. You know what I mean? Like you have a little advantage, but it takes a long session to be able to really see that advantage. But you know, I always loved competing at the 9-ball, but then the more I went on the road, I was in that era in the early 90s where I started to be able to play really good one pocket, where it was only Shannon Dalton that was known as a great young one pocket player. So all of us got action, you know, where you do 9-ball, and then, well, these guys couldn't wait to play young guys in one pocket. That was just kind of the MO. If you were trying to beat a young guy, don't play him 9-ball, play him some one hole. So I think that helped. I think seeing the beauty in the game also really helps. I mean, there's a lot of satisfaction in not only out shooting, but out thinking your opponent.
Yeah, and you can do that. Jeremy and I played Jeremy. Yeah, Jeremy, you know, I think Jeremy and I now I obviously had quite a bit of a different style coming up, but when my eyes started to go bad, which was about 6-7 years ago, I didn't even realize it, but I must have subconsciously known. I started to switch my style to a real tactical style, which I enjoyed and I do enjoy. But Jeremy and I just played a match in where were we? New Orleans.
Buffaloes.
Oh my goodness. We played a 12-hour race to 5. I think it was a little over 12 hours, actually.
Was it really 12 hours?
Yeah, and it was so long, and Jeremy got the better of it. But it was just it was actually people that loved the game. West Bank John and Randy, they were there like glued to it because we were just moving so much and just keeping each other off the shot, literally for 12 hours. But the match took so long. I think we started at 8:00 that night and got done at like 9:00 the next morning or somewhere around there. And Jeremy had to play Shane Van Boning 2 hours later. Now I can't remember exactly what time we finished because I was off the air on tilt. But Jeremy had to play.
I think we finished right before 8:00.
Okay.
Yeah, because I went back, and you know, you want to sleep as much as possible, but you can't wake up after 2-3 hours at 11:30 and be able to be awake. So I went back and slept 2 hours, got up like 10:15, 10:30, and then Shane beat me, but I tell you,
well, you beat him to the shot quite a bit.
Yeah, I beat him to shot about 4 out of 5 games. It was a little weak. So Freezer knocked it out of me.
That's interesting. Yeah. That's so interesting. I want a question about one pocket for both of you guys. I don't know if you both how you're going to answer it, but What do you think that this one pocket game that draws people? Like our stream, I have a stream, the Shark stream, right? When I can do a one pocket match, right? And I don't know hardly anything about one pocket, but I'll get 100 viewers. They'll sit there and watch it, like you said, for 8 hours. You don't have to commentate on it. You can just watch it. If I ever did that with nine ball, I'd have two people watching. What is it about this one pocket that when it gets a hold of people, it's something special?
Go ahead, Scott.
Well, I think, well, nowadays, I think with the help of a commentator like Jermey, obviously myself, but I think it's a cult following, or it used to be a cult following, like Ray Hansen and Pool Action TV. He would always get pretty much the same numbers, but they were good numbers, and these people understood the game. Now I think that people are really starting to understand the game quite a bit more. Unfortunately, it does take too long to play, and it'll never work for TV. And the way Matchroom's done nine ball now, I think it's a home run. Obviously, always tweaking, but you've got a cult following that starts to understand the game. And when I say cult following, now it's a little misleading because I believe it's grown even a lot more, even though the action's gone down. You still get these viewers now that are really kind of enthralled in watching it.
Yeah, I mean the culture I think is a big one that you touched on. I think also, to be honest, I mean maybe occasionally you'll have a fan out there that has done some of the things on the pool table that maybe Feder Gorst has done playing nine ball. But when it comes to one pocket, all those shots that those pros are shooting or those top players are shooting that people are watching, most of them have done those shots in one pocket. Now, they can't do them all the time necessarily like the top guys, but they've experienced that cross corner. They know what this spin shot feels like. You know what I mean? So they can almost grade themselves a little more watching that than they can nine ball, in a realistic manner, I think. Not saying they're consciously grading themselves, but I mean, they can get in touch with the player more because they've experienced those things playing one pocket where not too many of those guys have broke around 5-6 racks playing nine ball,
Yeah, now the game is completely changed. I know Jeremy will agree with me there. Like you've got a guy like Josh Filler that just won the Buffaloes event and really kind of smashed through that event. I had a chance, but that I'm bragging on having a chance to beat a guy. I mean, I had a slight chance. But now you've got guys that follow a guy like Filler or Feder Gorst. And really, these guys, all they're playing for is one little look, right? So now, like Jeremy just touched on the cross corner. Well, if they can sniff out a cross corner or a straight back, well, that's it. It's over with, right? They're gonna make really the most out of it. Whereas back in the day, you only had a few guys that were gonna make the most out of it. What I mean by that is typically just get out from anywhere, and I think that's where these other fans are kind of starting to come in at.
Yeah, and maybe another way to look at what you're saying is, that's where like the argument of the era is the nine ball. I think Buddy Hall would have been just as great today as the great players are today. Now maybe there's more of them, but my point is nine ball. It's a great game, and again, Matchroom's done a wonderful job, and the players are incredible. But there's not so much to the game to where it can evolve. Like where one pocket is so immense, it can evolve. It can become a hair different with the new age players and whatnot. So I don't think it's ever slows down one pocket. As far as the game itself, I don't think it ever becomes boring.
Yeah, it's a really good point. There's so many undiscovered shots in one pocket that it's really an endless game, and I think that's the beauty that players find in it at times. Obviously, we're not harping on one pocket. It's just a different game. I really get interested in commentating a match like we just had at the U.S. Open with Yap and Gorst. You and I were on the edge of our seats that whole match, but with tight pockets and the format that they have, the break format, you just don't see these guys breaking and running many racks. And when the pressure is on, you get to start to see some weakness as well. But I think there's beauty to both of them.
Yeah. And, when what I've always said about fans is fans, like when they watch football, right? Let's just take that for instance. I was an athlete, so when I watch a football game, I appreciate the throw, I appreciate the catch, but a lot of people didn't play sports that much, or maybe not as deep. So a lot of fans are all about decisions. You know, like, oh man, he shouldn't run the ball right there. Why did they throw the screen? All that kind of jazz. They're always on their seat being the coach, you know, and on the couch, right? Where one pocket gives you a little more of that, I think, than nine ball does overall. It gives you a little more of matchups, you know, one style against another style, which is intriguing. You know, how you going to how Scott Frost going to defend against Josh Filler in this race to five? You know, little things like that adds up to spectators.
Definitely good stuff, man. That was a great insight for both of you guys. It's a interesting take, and we do have a lot of one pocket fans out there that they literally, like I said, as Scott was saying, they're cult-ish, but there's also, I see it growing a little bit more. There's definitely more people playing here than ever before with one pocket, at least talking about it, which is something different, you know.
Yeah, the Northeast, it wasn't always the biggest one pocket area as a whole, but I think it's caught on. I think just like Banks with the Derby, I think Banks has become a game much more played than it was before the Derby City Classic came around.
Yeah, no question. And I think that's also improved a lot of these guys, even the elite players. It's made huge differences in their game, whether they admit it or not. I've said this over and over, but once Federgore started really dialing in and playing all those games, Josh Filler, I mean, their games really leveled up there.
Great point. They really have. What about the equipment? Let's touch on the equipment real quick. You know, Scott, when you played one pocket and you do two Jermey back in the day, you know, cloth was maybe a little different. I don't know if the Simonis just came out, but you have the Simonis now. You have all these carbon fiber shafts, and you know, does that affect the game at all a little bit more, or a little easy, make it a little easier than it was back in the day?
No, absolutely. The break shot, I think, is more devastating today with the equipment, the Simonis, the way the stack opens a little bit more, opening and running the balls without a doubt, a little easier. That's why they always talk about the argument of, you know, Mosconi's 526, you know, versus,
yeah, right.
You know, and I think all that adds up for sure, 100%.
I got
But
you.
don't take anything away from those players. You still got to put in the time to become that great player. You can't avoid that.
Oh, for sure, for sure. All right, let's touch on real quick with you. You may have already said this, but you know, you played in that tough era with so many good players, and you said, you know, Johnny Archer. Who was your toughest player, and who was your nemesis? Who was the guy that you just had a real tough time getting? You know, you could beat the guy, and obviously you can beat anybody, but what is that one person that really gave you a headache every time?
Johnny, right?
Johnny, yeah, Johnny cost me the most, without a doubt. I mean, not just the U.S. Open final, beat me 13-12, two consecutive pro events, the Big Apple Classic and the Carolina Open. I mean, just tons of tournaments. You know, just squeaked me out. And Efren at first, I think he beat me the first 6 or 7 times we played. Until I beat him in Denver in '98 in the Camel Pro Billiards Series. Beat him 9-8. And from there, I started to have a pretty decent record against him the next several years. But I'd say still overall, he's probably a hair on top. But Johnny Archer, without a doubt, definitely cost me more money than anyone.
Gotcha. And then obviously you said 96, 97, you were kind of just coming out of that pro tour too. So that's understandable. You're just starting to get your feet underground. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just a weird thing. You know, I'd say probably as a not a seeded player, I'd always draw, you know, a pretty top guy. A few of them I'd beaten, those top guys, for money, and several that I lost to in 96 and 97 that weren't the upper echelon on tour, I'd beat gambling. I just couldn't get used to that setting of the pro tour. Maybe all my peers and all my heroes right there and whatnot. So it took a little while, and I think for most of us it takes a little while for one reason or another.
For sure. For sure. Like I said, and I think you touched on it, said getting comfortable, right? Once you get comfortable, and even when you're playing in big events, I hear players all the time. If you're not comfortable, it doesn't work, right? You got to be comfortable.
Yeah, and it's winning too, right? Like you can get close to winning over and over and over, but a lot of times it'll start to play a little bit of a head game with you. But like we see it now. Like look at what Yap's done, winning 3 opens back to back to back. Kind of like if you're, but you've still got to be that player that really can take advantage of it. We see a player win a tournament and kind of fall back here and there, but really once you win that first event that really, and it wasn't Yap's first win, obviously, but there's certain events you happen to win it, and the floodgates kind of open, and you can really take advantage from there because you kind of get that monkey off your back.
Yeah, and I think the W&T is another level. That's why Yap will cherish those 3 wins in a row or whatever. But it is he won before that, like you said. But I think that World Nine Bowl tour for those big open events just gives you a different feeling, and that's a hurdle he had to climb, even as great as he is, even as late as 2025, and you see what he's done since he's gotten that first one.
Yeah, we had Fran on the show last episode, and he was talking about how just talk about, like you said, pressure. He won a bunch of events. He was real close to Mosconi, but he wasn't guaranteed. Somebody whispered in his ear, said, "You're in Mosconi." And then from there on, he wins the U.S. Open. He plays so comfortably. And like Scott was saying, once you get that win or you feel comfortable, and bang, he comes out and wins the U.S. Open. So it's the mindset is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. And then you just kind of, once those things settle in, then you just kind of start worrying about yourself again, which sounds selfish, but it's definitely needed out there. You gotta put forth as maximum of effort as you can to put yourself in the best position to play your best pool. And once you can, whether it be check things off or just feel good about a situation, whatever it may be, that just makes it easier to concentrate on yourself, which is how you play your best pool.
This episode is brought to you by Jay Pechauer. Jay Pechauer is on board with us, and they've just come out with a limited edition of Country Cues about America. They've got 50 of each cue, and they're online now.
We talked about your big U.S. Open win and your biggest wins. What was your toughest loss? One that you still may wake you up in the middle of the night once in a blue moon because a shot that you missed or a situation that you messed up. What was your toughest loss of your total career?
Well, I mean, the U.S. Open was a hard one because at that point I was playing so well, and you never know how sustaining that speed I thought was doable, but still, playing as pretty much as well as I could, I thought, and maybe not winning, so makes you wonder if you're going to get back there again, fortunate enough to do so. I guess I'll bring it up this week, but it's still brought up about every other week, or even more often, about that time foul I had against David Alcady in the Mosconi Cup. I'm sure y'all remember that. Seems like everyone I run into does, but overall, that one kind of haunts me a little bit. Few reasons. I felt like we were right in there to win that Mosconi at that point. I think that last match would have put a little something for the Euros to think about. I think it would have boosted my team, which I think was super important to me. And also, I never really shot that 6 ball. I've never shot it, so I'm kind of curious also if I'd have made it or not. So, because I was soft spinning the cue ball with a ton of spin at a real light speed. That's why I had the cue ball clean to begin with. But that one kind of hurts still.
Yeah, I mean, but the disclaimer to that, Jeremy, obviously, and you know this, and I know as a player, though, that's not what you're thinking about, but you were just you were thrown to the wolves there. I mean, you weren't, it wasn't like you've been practicing for the last year to play the cup. So, that's a good disclaimer.
Yeah, but the funny thing is, I got to where I felt pretty good physically,
sure,
with stroke and whatnot. The team was awesome. When I got the nod, I had to play, which was only like 24 hours before the event started. They let me go on one of the tables and get a lot of practice in, and they were a great support group that week. But you still want to you know, Mosconi Cup to me is, I grew up playing team sports, so it was a very big deal to me. And, you know, when you asked about big matches in career, I think I was lucky enough to win a couple of those points, those winning points for the Mosconi. The first 2 years it was in America in '03 and '05. And winning those points, one against Marcus Shamat, the other Thorsten Holman, those were big matches also.
A great segue into Mosconi because that's what we want to touch on next. Obviously, your huge career with all your Mosconi and WNT. Was the difference playing and coaching? Was there a huge difference? Did you like one better?
I mean, I liked them both, but they were definitely a big difference. I mean, without a doubt. I mean, it was easier for me to leave some things behind as a player versus a coach, meaning like, you know, when you make a mistake or when something doesn't go your way or what, you know, whatever's the case, I could always leave that behind as a player pretty well, especially if I was in form and practicing like I should be. But I think I let some things in as a coach. It took me a little while to start to ease on some of the things, and just because I wanted to win so bad, and you know, being a player and not far from playing, you got to detach what you would feel as a player versus what other players are feeling as a player. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it definitely makes sense.
Yeah, like, you know, I got to look at it more as like,
well, they're completely different.
Yeah, what a coach should be thinking versus if I was the player that was out there. You know, oh, you know, a player is going to think differently from player to player. That's just how it is, and you got to accept that and learn how to coach along with it.
Well, I think as a player, like you said, now I don't know. I haven't played in the Mosconi Cup, but as a player, you've got the other four guys kind of to lean on, and everybody makes mistakes in that format. Everybody makes mistakes in that format. But as a coach, and I don't see how anybody couldn't take it to the ultimate magnitude of being serious with an opportunity to represent your country. It just doesn't get any bigger than that stage, in my opinion, and it's the biggest event in cue sports. It's tough, right? I've coached some teams. Fortunately, have won everything that I've coached, but much smaller level. We were in bonus ball as well. Obviously I didn't win that, but we made it to the quarterfinals or finals. But you tend to want to probably swallow that a little differently. It's a little bit bigger pill, and you can take it a little more personal, right? When stuff like that starts to go sideways. So you had a tough road, and it's definitely not on you. I think that the hardest thing for the Mosconi Cup and American players, or the Mosconi Cup in general, and why it's beautiful, is you just mentioned something about 10 minutes ago that I still think about, right? And you said you've got to kind of think about yourself a little bit more. And you were talking about and pertaining to these events. And that's 100% right? So now these guys have to switch gears in a short amount of time, right? And it really is a short amount of time, and I think it's about a month that they start to kind of try to get together, 3 weeks, maybe even 2 weeks at times, I think. So that when they're switching gears like that and trying to glue everybody together, it's a challenge, because these guys have to go from being independent and thinking about themselves, really thinking about themselves all year, to now becoming one. So it's a heavy challenge.
Yeah, and you know, you try to do things almost disguising some of that camaraderie, you know, and making it very simple, because you still do want them to think about themselves as far as preparation in many ways, but because so you don't want it to be massive change. And then some take that change better than others, you know, like, you know, when I was on the team with Earl way back in the day, you know, it's kind of like when he was on the team a few years ago, you know, you give him his space, do his thing, and that's going to be for Earl. And so you got to treat them all a little differently.
Sure.
But, you know, you still want that extra feeling of, you know, I got your back. Now, the good thing about today which isn't a whole lot different than years ago, but it is a little different, is most of these guys get along really, really well. They might poke at each other and whatnot, just like whenever I had that time foul. The next day, Jason Shaw, he got the cue ball clean 2 different times in his match, and he looked at it both times with and give me a little wink or a little smirk, or can't remember exactly how it went down, but I was pretty much giving him some bad words under my breath in the friendliest way, but my point is these guys get along pretty well. So, whether they're against each other, we get the best matches, or when they have the chance to team up, it doesn't seem like it's pulling teeth as a whole,
No, I agree. And I'm not debating anything, but they are way, I shouldn't use the word way. They are definitely much more professional in a lot of aspects due to the platforms that they play on nowadays. But I still believe, and I know that there's egos. Excuse me, my camera. I just bumped my laptop. I know there's still egos deep down that are at play, right? And I think sometimes maybe those need to be exposed with one another behind the scenes. I don't know. I won't get into that, but I know that it's not. That's my whole point. It's not easy to go from playing each other, and I know I play better than he does. But he doesn't know it, right? There's all those little things that happen. And I'm not saying that would come out, but it's always down there somewhere that I think can kind of eat it, guys, every now and then, even though you don't see it. So who knows?
No, absolutely, Scott. I mean, that's why I think the setup of the 3-off rankings and 2 picks is very on point. You know what I mean? And makes it to where a captain can make maybe a tough decision, but it's a necessary one because of something that maybe doesn't sit on the felt, maybe something that sits off the felt a little bit that you have to consider when you're trying to go in there and win the cup.
Agreed. Yeah.
Let's talk about WNT's Reyes Cup now. Let's have they decided actually who's captain yet, or they won't do the players until Hanoi, correct? They won't announce the players until the Hanoi Championship.
That's right, and I think you'll get more information probably this coming week leading up to that, but definitely there in Hanoi about what's going on with that Reyes and how everything's going to unfold.
When do you leave for Hanoi, Jeremy?
I leave Saturday night, the 4th.
Okay, yeah. I was just looking at my flights. I leave Saturday night, the 4th, and don't get in till the 6th.
Same.
Yeah, that freaked me out a little bit.
Well, you lose a little time.
Yeah. I started really looking at the flights, and I'm like, okay, whatever. It is what it is. It's not like you have a choice. So,
no, I think you probably have a better route than I do, but
you say that every time.
Well, I think you're going west. I'm going east. So,
which is, you kind of get screwed there a little bit
longer, but that's okay. No big deal.
How do you know I'm going
24
west?
hours, 22 hours, 26? What does it matter at that point?
No, you're going to be a little out of it when you arrive.
Yeah.
I'm going.
It's great accommodations there. It's short walk to the venue. Hopefully, not too much rain. That's the only thing I think we got lucky with last year. It was really good, the weather.
I'm so excited.
I hear they're getting smashed with rain right now. For the Perry, Jonas, and Lucas, they're showing pictures of puddles and stuff. It's pretty bad down there right now, I guess.
Yeah, actually, that's kind of why I brought that up, because I'd seen some stuff online earlier this morning about that. But yeah, I mean, Southeast Asia, they have some rainy seasons, so you just got to hope it's not too bad.
Well, talking about that rain, I fish a lot. You guys know that. The city that I go through and fish out of is Globe, Arizona. And my partner that I fish with, one of my best friend, probably Jim Cross, he's a sheriff, and that's his territory. He has been, I've talked to him daily. We've lost a lot of people there. There's still about 20 plus people missing. And we're talking about a small town. You can blink and go through this town and miss it really. It's a cute little town, but the rains here have been intense, which we need. But flash floods happen here, and we don't have soil like most towns, right? So when it rains here, the water has really nowhere to go, and it just wiped a bunch of cars out and buried a bunch of people. And he's been pulling people out of the rubbish for the last few days. So a lot of rain going on.
Yeah, it's been a weird year on weather and a lot of crazy stuff. I don't know about y'all. Of course, y'all keep it hot out there in Phoenix, but in July and August, we usually get every day somewhere between 103 to 110 here. Pretty consistent.
And humid, right?
North Texas is not too bad. Not like Houston. I mean, it's not like you, but it's a little bit of humidity, but not too bad. And usually we have a drought, but I think we've had 3 to 4 days at 100 degrees all summer. That's it. It's been a real. Now it's still been warm. It's still been high 90s and whatnot, but I don't know. It's just been a crazy kind of summer here.
It's actually been a pretty mild summer here as well. So that's actually good to hear, really.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see what the winter brings.
Right, so we got this the Reyes Cup, the rest of the world thing. Do you have an opinion on this? We talked about this before they decided to make this change from Team Europe to the rest of the world. What do you think of it?
I like it. I don't mind it at all. I think it gives some different flavor. I think if we had to pick out a continent at the moment that is the leader in the world, I think it would be hard to say Asia isn't the leader, maybe, as a whole. Europe would have a lot to say about that as a continent, and as they should, but I think it's good. I think we'll see some mixture, some stories about things. Like Scott said, these players have to adapt so many different ways, so they'll adapt nicely. But I think it's going to be a good thing overall. I think like I said, you bring in some South America, maybe you bring in Canada, you bring in some very potential players for this future of the Reyes Cup.
No, I agree. I agree. I think it was needed. I mean, you got to change things up a little bit, and I agree with Asia. I think Asia is probably at the top of the list right now as far as talent, and it's kind of been proven as of late. And Europe is obviously right there, but I think it was needed, and I think it'll be fun.
Yeah, and I think the Reyes Cup originally was like, all right, whoever wins the Mosconi goes and plays the Reyes, but then you're looking at 7 months later, 8 months later. Are you keeping the same team that won the Mosconi? What if one guy's out of form? Then he was in form back then. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah,
it happened last year.
Yeah, I think this brings a nice spice to something that's going to be very current off the rankings. I think it gives a nice spice still for Asia as far as the variety of players in different countries, especially with so many different countries emerging. But I think it does the same for the rest of the world team also.
Is this correct? So are there two? Is there two captains, or how does it work? Two, and then they pick two rankings and one wild card. How is the team actually formed? Do we even know 100%? Like the rest of the world.
I believe I screenshotted everything, but I believe it's 3 off the rankings. Is that correct?
That's Mosconi, right? That's how Mosconi did. I thought I saw something a while back where it was 2 and then the 2 points and then 1 wild card. I could be mistaken. And again, I haven't seen anything official yet, so I'm trying to really figure it out.
No, I believe it's on here somewhere if I can find it.
I think it might be 2 and 2 with 1. But one thing I can say is when Emily first announced the Reyes Cup, I felt like this was just probably one of the best ideas you could ever have. Yeah, and it's gonna grow massively. Sooner or later, it's gonna get really big. Sorry, Bobby, I got some noise in the background. I didn't know what was happening there.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
No, you're good. You're good. But I think it's a genius idea, the Reyes Cup, and I think it's going to get as big. Believe it or not, I've said this since day one. They're just in their infancy. of the event, but I think it's going to get as big or bigger than the Mosconi Cup, which
Yeah, I
is
think it's
hard to
going to
say.
be a huge event. Yeah, Scott. Sorry, I'm
Yeah.
trying to scroll
Yeah.
back through trying to find this exact format.
But yeah, I agree as well. I mean, and Jeremy touched on this earlier, and Scott, you did as well. You know, when you have these events now, when you have 3,000 people watching and cheering, and when I used to talk to Jason Shaw, you know, talk to him many times. His room's half an hour from me, you know, and he said there's nothing. It's hard to play other events when you play Mosconi because you get that crowd, and like Jeremy said, it's not about the money; it's about the crowd, the adrenaline, and all that stuff. So I think with to get the Reyes Cup doing that and then Mosconi, I think Scott might be right. It might be bigger, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I played in a lot of sporting events, you know, throughout my life. You know, nothing professional besides pool, but a lot of events. You want to be the guy at the plate to try and drive in the winning run, or whatever it might be, right? But your heart gets going. But I've never felt anything like the Mosconi, nothing even close. And I wouldn't say it makes it harder. But you just wish more events were like the Mosconi, even the individual events overall. But that's what also makes it special, just because it is at the top of that mountain when it comes to so many different things.
And we're in the right direction. I mean, Scott talked about it. Well, you guys were at, and so was I at the U.S. Open. The U.S. Open crowd was really fired up for Federer and Yap. The atmosphere was incredible.
Oh
Yeah.
no, yeah, it was great last year with SVB and Federer. I mean, it was really good in Florida. Of course, we'll see another great one in Hanoi. I think they all have their own little different elements about them. Where Hanoi is like super young. That's another thing that gives you that energy. They're all like captivated with the games going on. They might have their phone out to take a picture, but they're not just scrolling, and not paying attention. A lot of true pool fans, just all kinds of places.
Yeah, and talking about Hanoi real quick, obviously I've not been there, and I can't wait to go. I'm going to soak it up. But who said this? Somebody we just had on the show recently said that there's 2,000 pool rooms in Hanoi. I mean, that's just hard for me to get my head around.
No, I don't.
And it was a good source that said it. Robbie, weren't we filming this person?
Yeah, I can't remember. I remember.
That's
insane.
I think
it's more like 100+ pool rooms just in Hanoi, 150 maybe, 130.
Was it Jason that said 2,000 pool rooms?
It might have been Jason, I think. Not 100%.
But yeah.
I wouldn't doubt there's 2,000 pool tables, probably more, but probably 10,000 pool tables there, or 20,000. But there's a lot of rooms there with 50 tables, 60 tables, 70 tables, and staying packed. And like I said, they're all real young, eager, and they're a lot of funsy players, but very aware funsy players. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
It's not just banging; they're trying to hit the ball better, and they follow pool and they keep up with it. So you'll get a chance to get to them pool rooms, and you'll see.
I'm excited. Yeah.
Right. Let's wrap this up. We got a lot of good stuff on this video. JJ, last thing. Mosconi this year, what do you think? I mean, they haven't officially made a captain yet, right? What do you think is going to happen with this year? Of course, obviously with the Hanoi and Perry happening, the points could matter. Right now, if you had to pick a team, who would you pick for both sides? And what do you think? You think they're going to make the same captains, or are they going to make another choice?
I wouldn't doubt if they go with the players' captains again, and those two guys. I'm sure Skyler would want another shot, and Jason sure did a fine job as a captain, and of course he played real well also. I think those two guys will be two guys, no matter the rankings, that'll be there for each team. That'll be Skyler and Jason, captain or not. I'm not sure. I haven't really heard anything in that regard, but. Going down Europe from there, probably, I mean, you're going to probably look at FSR. He played really well there. He's there on the points. He's close. Josh Filler, I think you know, hard to ignore that name when it comes to that Mosconi Cup. So what is that? 3 with Jason, FSR, Josh. It's
2
going to be
left.
different. Yeah, 2 left. I wouldn't be surprised if we get a different name in there of some sort.
Claudio, maybe.
Maybe Claudio, maybe Pseudo, maybe Moritz Newhausen, depending on what kind of Vietnam he has. He did win the PLP this year and has played pretty solid.
Now, what do you think about what Fran and David said? He said that most likely American side or Europe side is not going to pick a rookie. They might pick somebody else, like maybe a David instead of picking a Soto or a Kalido, or you think there'd be that much pressure because these young kids are playing so well, they might have to pick them.
Well, I don't think it's as much that as those guys are playing well, of course, but I was actually, you read my mind, I was going to bring David's name up next, that here's a guy that just keeps playing super solid, and you know solid's going to be there. You know the brain's going to be there. You know knowing the table's going to be there. You know he's a great doubles partner. So it's still hard to overlook some of those veterans. I know we all want to give the youngsters a chance, but you know, as a captain and as a team or whatever it is, you want to try and win and give your team the best chance. And that's why a lot of times when you see a captain pick someone outside the box, just like the year I picked Chris Reinhold. I didn't pick him to try and give him a chance. I thought he gave us the best chance to win, and you know, and he played pretty well overall. But I think it's going to be hard to overlook, like a David Alcady and maybe even some other veterans out there. But I wouldn't be surprised if a Cledio or Camino or another rookie gets in there. It wouldn't shock me. And then you got the American side. I think, of course, Federer, you're going to have Skyler. I think Shane's going to be there. At the moment, I think it's hard to ignore Tyler Steyer and how he's played in that Mosconi.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think he's up there in points too now. So I think he's locked in 3 right now, if I'm not mistaken. But
yeah, and he's had a real crazy year. You know, he's had some tournaments to where we're like, man, what's going on with his game? And then he kind of scrapes through, and then he ends up being, you know, gets to the semifinals, beats Josh Fuller. What was that, at the UK Open, I believe it was?
UK Open.
Yeah, and so, you know, he's had a real scrappy kind of year at times, but, you know, as a coach, you don't mind scrappy. You know what I mean? Yeah, at times, because it's not always going to be perfect pool out there at the Mosconi. So,
you got
and
one
then the
left.
fifth pick again, you may have someone different in the 5th pick.
Yeah, you might. I mean, obviously, it's hard to overlook. You just touched on it's hard to overlook a guy like Oscar Dominguez or Billy Thorpe, but you do have the younger players coming on. Lucas is obviously right there as well. But back on Tyler, like Tyler's really, in my opinion, at the Mosconi Cup, Tyler's really stepped it up quite a bit. I mean, each year to me, win or lose, it seems like he's handling things quite a bit better.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be prepared. You know, he's been out there many times. He always breaks the balls well. He's become a better partner more and more, I think, every year. And never saying he was bad, but I'm just saying he's become one of those real solid partners now that's going to complement almost any player he plays with. Maybe not necessarily on paper making Federer Gorst better, but he's not going to really make Federer Gorst diminish in any kind of way playing partners with him. You know, as an example.
Doesn't need any help. He's going to play his game. He's going to play great, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
See that.
And, you know, and I don't think you're going to see a partner say, oh, man, I got to worry about Tyler in this regard. You know what I mean? I mean, kicks at the ball well, plays safe well.
Yeah.
He's got a hell of a chin. Tyler Steyer does. Some people, they say, are born with heart. I didn't know him when he was young, but he sure has developed his heart through the years that I've seen. So I think he's a hard one to overlook.
I agree. Yeah. So who's the 5th pick? Who are you taking?
Ooh,
if he's number 4, no pressure.
Well, I mean, you know, the way Oscar played last year, I thought he was going to play real well in the Mosconi if he got that chance. You know, Billy Thorpe came with it at the end of the year and got that deserving pick. That was nothing wrong with that, I saw. Um, I wouldn't mind seeing Oscar make it this year. I don't know how much play he's going to do coming towards the end of this year, so that may hurt. But you could get one of your boys up there, that Lucas for Casa Werner. You
Yeah,
never
you
know.
played him in New York. He plays pretty good. He's gotten his game's really coming alive, I think.
Yeah, I mean, he may be one that some would say needs to be like right there at the dollars, if not in, to pick him. But I mean,
He's
I
fifth
don't know.
right now, I think. He's fifth right now.
He's
I think.
fifth,
Fourth.
yeah.
He's fourth or fifth.
Fourth to fifth, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's like Scott said, it's going to be hard to overlook an Oscar or a Billy, but I wouldn't mind seeing the team change a little bit from last year.
It sounds good. You heard that here. He's not sure, right? Who you picking number 5? Gun to your head.
Man.
What do you got?
Let's just go with Dominguez. How about that?
There you go.
Yeah. Bobby's good at this.
Yeah, Bobby puts you right on the spot.
And I don't ever know any of the questions really. Like he'll send them to me right before we start, and I'm like, what the fuck? I'm not even gonna look at this. So
no, it's best to have them a little spontaneous.
Yeah, I agree. Just flow with it.
Yeah.
And he did. I don't know. He deserved it last year. A lot of people thought. We went through that. He was on the show as well. We talked about it with him. So he laid it on the line how he felt about it and stuff. So
it's just tough.
Yeah.
It's tough, to get to plant a seed in somebody's head when you're asking them who's your fifth, and then all of a sudden, people probably text Oscar, "Hey, Jermey said he'd probably." And then something happens, right? It's not easy. It's not easy, especially on veterans that have taken the back seat a few times. So it's just not easy.
Yeah, and I know Billy Thorpe's in Vietnam and playing those events and whatnot. And he's trying hard last year. When he got that pick, him and Skyler are close, and everyone knows that. And Billy's had that experience of winning the Cup before, which is unique to some players, American players these days. But he also has done a lot the last couple of years, Billy Thorpe, and he had a huge win at the Battle of the Bull last year to really, I think, probably get him that pick. So nothing against Oscar, of course. Oscar had a great year also, but I think both of them were deserving picks. Just one of them, it couldn't be both of them. It had to be one,
Right, last question before we let you go. Again, thanks for your time. For America, what do we have to do to start beating the Europeans? What is American side? 100%. What do we do? How do we fix it? It's going to be 10-10 this year because of what are we doing?
Well, I think tactically we got to play our best game. I think run out wise is probably the smallest differential, I think, between the teams, or difference rather between the teams. Breaking wise, we can keep up. I think tactically is where it showed up last year. The separation started to get there.
Yeah, we didn't break, and we didn't. I don't feel like the breaking is really much different. But boy, I was kind of taking stats down, and the shots that Europe was getting after the break in the beginning, I felt like they were just getting away with it. But it carried on throughout, and we didn't get the shots after the break, and still hung with them, right, Jeremy? Like mid cup, it could have gone either way. There was a match there. I think it was Skyler and Federer that played where it could have gone either way. But it just seemed like, and they were breaking from a different position. Europe was breaking more from the center. We were breaking more from the outside. I think Europe was using a leather tip, and we were using phenolic. I don't know.
Well, I think there's some other things. I'd commented on this before. I think Jason did a great job of being the animated guy throughout the entire event, when he was playing, when he wasn't playing.
Right.
And then he had the other guys kind of be more of themselves. They celebrated when they won and the match is over. But I think he had them really keep focus a little better. I think the Americans at times, in mid-match are celebrating big time mid-match.
Agreed.
And
fully agree.
Billy Thorpe may have been that guy to do that, but everyone else has got to stick to more of what keeps them focused. And then once you win the match, go crazy as hell. It doesn't matter, right? Do your thing. But but overall, you got to keep yourself in check and be as close to normal as you can.
Yeah. I don't want to harp on that, but I agree. I think you got to let the fans do their job. And as a player, if you've got that outside man that wants to bring the crowd on, like a Billy or whoever it is, go for it. But you've got to really kind of just stand there. You don't want to celebrate a little too early. And I think there was a little bit of that.
Yeah. And sometimes you got to relax and whatnot and break a smile. And, we talk about sometimes with SVB that way, but SVB most of the time is trying to keep that concentration.
Yeah.
And I think that goes along for most players. There is a special human here and there like Jason that can kind of go with the flow and still perform, but that's pretty rare, I think, overall.
Oh, on that stage, it's extremely rare. There's nobody like him that can really do that.
Maybe Earl back in his heyday, maybe.
Maybe, but if you ever watch Earl back, he could little antics and whatnot, he could shut off, but he was very like stepping forward. You know what I mean? Like if you watched his eyes and how serious he was, there was a big level of confidence.
Absolutely.
For Earl Strickland, for sure.
Shout out to our amazing sponsors, Classic Billiards, Metro Sportz Bar, Anytime Billiards, PNW Pool Thing, the RACK Billiard Club, Pechauer, Tommy's Tattoo Supplies, In the Box, Andy Gow, and Wayne Harriman. Make sure to check them out, and thanks for supporting the Boom and Freezer Show.